Welcome to this week's edition of the First State Kopites podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by guests from around North America. Well, I guess the US. And welcome back to Daz, Haitham, and Ben. Good to have you today. We weren't actually planning on recording an episode because it's the international break, and what would be happening? What could we possibly talk about? Well, 45 injuries later, here we are. What we decided to do was just, talk about like what is possibly going on. What might Liverpool's near-term future look like? I guess first thing I'd want to say though is, if you haven't subscribed to the First State Kopites channel, please do so. And we hope you're all keeping safe out there. It'd be wrong not to start actually with the sad news that we heard today about Ray Clemence, possibly Liverpool's best ever goalkeeper, certainly the first winner of the European Cup as goalkeeper, passed away today at the age of 72. I'm going to go around and see what memories you have of the great man who clearly helped us kind of elevate our game to world power level from where we had been when he came and joined us from Scunthorpe, I believe, way back when. So Daz is nodding, so I'm going to go to him first.
Just from the human level, everything that you hear about Ray Clemence was he was just a true gentleman, just a super nice guy. Always had time to talk to people. Pretty friendly with Roy Yates down in Florida, and he brought him over a few times. So I think that they kind of shared some stories, and he shared some time with him, driving him around. And he said he was just a quality human being. So first and foremost, I think we lost a good one. Just to see like his save percentage and his shutout percentage. I don't know if you saw that. Beasley put it out. Like 48% of his games were shutouts.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he's incredible. And then I watched that 4-minute video that the club put out because my first real memory of a goalkeeper was probably Bruce.
Yeah.
And then obviously he's pretty storied in his own way, but mine was always all my knowledge of Ray Clemence is secondhand knowledge. But I talked to my dad, and my dad was part of the setup at Liverpool for a while in the youth system, and he said he just missed him as well. But he said everything that he's heard about him, he said he was just an incredible goalkeeper, and his statistics will show that. And the fact that he got that standing ovation from the Kop when he came back with Spurs in the second half, there was like I had a couple of things squeezed out the side of my eyeballs, and I watched it. I couldn't help myself. Kind of soft like that.
Wow. I was at that game actually. That was the Liverpool clinched the league, I think, on that day, 1982, May 82. Tottenham actually took the lead in that game, but we won 3-1. But yeah, it was funny because that was the first place I went to when I saw the news. Like, oh, what do I remember about him? It's like bizarre that the first memory was of him playing for somebody else. Despite kind of all the great games that he had played for us, particularly in the 70s. So Haitham, any memories that you have of Ray Clemence?
Yeah, so just like Daz, I everything that I know about Clemence is secondhand. Obviously, Grobler, Bruce is the one that I grew up watching and the one that I have the most memories watching growing up. But I watch a lot of LFC TV, whenever I get a chance, and there are a lot of documentaries and this compilation of old matches, and you could really see his greatness. But the thing that, I keep saying that, when people talk positively about you, most of the time or all the time, it tells about your greatness. And even, with the passing today, just reading people's eulogies, basically, from all kinds of backgrounds, it wasn't just the Liverpool fans, it was, English fans, people from across the board, from European leagues, past European players, and they were all saying good things about him. So It's a sad day, especially for someone who is connected to the greatness of Liverpool from the 70s and around that era. So yeah, it was kind of sombering a little bit. So yeah, big loss.
Yeah, there were, I recall on some of the official hangouts, some of the in there had talked about, when Nils is done, we should kind of get him to come over again because he was one of the best people we had. There's a lot of different places people had said that, because I think he'd more recently done a tour of the West Coast supporters clubs. Yeah. Ben, final thoughts on Ray Clemence?
The first time I ever heard of Ray Clemence, I was drinking beer with my buddy Mirza and his dad Rudy. They're both originally from the former Yugoslavia, and Rudy said that Ray Clemence was the best keeper he'd ever seen. And so that was the first time I've ever heard of him. I can just say on social media that he obviously was a very beloved individual, and 72 seems way too young anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Can't leave the segment without getting a little dig in at Jordan Pickford, but it's weird in that era. England probably had two best goalkeepers in the world in him and Peter Shilton, and I think they failed to qualify for like 2 of the 4 tournaments that both Clemence or Shilton could have played in. Yeah. So anyway. And clearly, England's goalkeeping options right now are not quite that good.
Moving on.
Oh, come on, every opportunity. Actually, I didn't see any of England. I don't even know Pickford is actually the goalie. But I'm sure
they tried to be kind to him when the first one went in, because it took a double deflection, but it still looked like he had his arm tucked into his side at full stretch. It almost defies like biology how short his arms become when a ball gets towards like the bottom corners.
So I'm guessing England lost, did they? I didn't catch the game.
It was it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. The only thing I noticed was Henderson J leaving at 45 minutes, and we'll talk about that before we're done. Let's start with COVID. Clearly, we're going to be without Mo Salah for at least one game next weekend, and I guess the biggest fear that I would have is that there's many more examples out there of teams with COVID cases and our players in and around those same people. So what do you, we'll talk about the injuries, which is probably a more scary situation. But what's your take on kind of where we're likely to end up with as a result of all the COVID cases, Daz?
Well, sharper and duller minds than mine have both said the same thing. It's like, why the F are we even doing this? Yeah. Like, it's a global pandemic, and the second wave, by all accounts, is going to be worse than the first. And we're sending these guys to far-flung regions of the planet where they have no control over. Well, the clubs don't have any control over what their guys are doing. Yeah. I know that Mo took some stick for going to his brother's wedding. It's his brother's wedding. I get whether or not he got it there. It seems like it wouldn't be. It seems pretty quick to get the test and then the day after and have it. Yeah. But it's unnecessary, and I guess that I don't know. I think it's in the agenda. We can talk about why we even have these internationals at this point. It just seems like a kind of a cash grab, and I feel for coaches of international teams, like they do need to get their guys back together to at least, I guess, talk about strategy, because these guys are the finest players in the game. Yeah. If he wants, I'm not sure what he's having them do to have Joe Gomez tear a patella tendon nowhere near a ball, or nowhere near him at least. It's like, what is the purpose? Yeah. Like, you could have the argument, well, he could have done it at home, but he didn't. And this is the third time he's done it on international duty. Like, What? And I just read somewhere that the FA now has to pay Liverpool £2 million to cover his expected time out.
Yeah.
I realized this is again, because we know we like tangents here, but I didn't realize he was on that little money. I think he's only on 80,000 a week. That was the tweet that I read, at least. And again, take it for what it's worth. It was a tweet, so I'm sprinkle a little bit of salt on that for you.
Yeah.
But I guess Brazil as well. Am I reading that Allison and Bobby are around someone that tested positive?
I believe so. Yeah, I can't remember who the guy was, but yes, yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So I guess there's different levels, aren't there? And I think we can probably wrap up COVID and the level of irrelevance of international football during a global pandemic in the same kind of question. I mean, I think the one thing to start with is who needs friendlies, really? I mean, that seems the most ridiculous thing in all of this. I get that they can claim they have commitments around, well, we could talk about Nations League and how important that is. Maybe the Euros, World Cup qualifiers, you could argue more of a case for them. So Haitham, what's your take on kind of how bad could it get in terms of COVID and the importance of international football or not?
I think I agree with everyone. There's no need to international football at this point. I remember a few months ago, earlier in the summer, this was before the restart, a friend of mine wrote an article, or an acquaintance actually, and it was during the time when the PL was putting together a schedule for the restart and all of that stuff. And then the article was basically saying, why are we doing this? He was basically at the time against restarting football with the way the pandemic was going. Although, everything was trending down at that point. But at the time, I was like, okay, just look at Germany, because the German Bundesliga started way before, I don't know, I can't remember if it was a month before the PL. But, they did not have any cases. They had a solid protocol in place. And, my rebuttal at the time was, well, if they just follow how the Bundesliga did it, it should be fine. And I think the PL did that at that time. But taking it, or digging in deeper a little bit, I think if it's just one competition, it's much easier to control all the elements that factor into players getting infected with COVID than, like you guys said earlier, having them travel thousands and thousands of miles and get in touch with all kinds of people on the way to do what they were supposed to do. So yeah, it's I agree. Reducing the number of internationals or just, doing away with them at once is a good idea. But one thing I want to, just talk about a little bit, when Daz was asking why are they doing this, I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was recently, I think it was probably Robertson, and he was asked the same question or a similar question, not within the context of COVID. I think it was within the context of just the number of games and all of that stuff. And I'm not sure if it was Robertson, but it was a superstar, a PL superstar. But they were saying, they basically said that it's a big deal for them to play for their country. So regardless of the situation or whatever, if they get called to play for their country, then they just have to do it. And I see that point too. So just, wanted to add it to the mix.
Yeah. I think it's a really valid point, actually, that, if they didn't play the games, then you had a whole load of people who are probably at the height of their powers and don't get to represent their countries do get that. I guess the thing, though, that I come back to is there's a global pandemic and it's not like FIFA and UEFA are short of money. They could easily be, if it's the individual FAs that need the money, they could be helping out. It just seems so unfocused, especially when you had that thing the other day where, like, the Danish players who wouldn't leave England to go play for the Danish national team, because if they did, they'd have to do 14-day quarantine when they came back, and the Danish FA were complaining how unreasonable it was that they were imposing these restrictions. It's like, really? No. So, because apparently there's a problem with Danish mink, if you've read about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which
Slaughtered millions of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Daz?
They slaughtered millions of them.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Which suggests that we
The
don't.
mink, not the Danes.
Yeah, right. But it suggests that the Danish FA, whoever the spokesperson was, may be slightly out of touch with what is happening in his own country, never mind the world. So Ben, I guess we've touched on COVID, we've touched on internationals. What's your perspective?
The perspective I would add that we haven't talked about yet is that I was thinking about what is the argument for having international play, but also having the Champions League, which also involves international travel. And while we're sitting here, I think I've come up with it. If you look at let's say the Brazilian team, you have people coming from their individual bubbles. You have Richarlison coming from Everton. You have our guys coming from Liverpool. You have Neymar coming from Paris. And you have players from all over the world coming from these various countries, and they have to be together, right? And so basically you're breaking at least 11 bubbles, or let's say 11 bubbles, and making a new one, and then bringing that back to the clubs. And so essentially what I think is that there should be no friendlies. There were World Cup qualifiers in South America, but South America is a long ways away, and some of those countries are, Brazil in particular, and the United States in particular, and perhaps England in particular, do not have the virus under control. Yeah. And rather than pick 3 countries that you can't go to, or say we're not going to do it at all, let's just say we're going to get club soccer, we're going to get our domestic leagues, we're going to get the Champions League, and that's what we're going to get for now. And maybe how we only had 1 month off this summer, whatever it was, maybe we're going to have a longer time off. Hopefully, not nothing. I mean, this is speculative too, depending if and when there's a vaccine, right? But if everything goes very, very well, and perhaps even better than what we're hoping, then we can have an extra month in the summer to make up those matches. Because it just doesn't make any sense to where we go through all of these precautions to even do club football. And then break it up every 6 weeks to go infect everybody. And as far as Salah going to his brother's wedding, I think he gets to go to his brother's wedding. I think we'd all feel better if we knew he offered his brother to do it later, and pay for it. I think that would all put a smile on our face, but it's not our business. I mean, he gets to go to his brother's wedding.
Yeah.
Well, I have a quick question on the national pride tip. Like, I understand for Robertson, like, it's huge. They're in an international tournament that they haven't been in for how long now? 22 years. Is that what I saw?
Yeah.
So, but I guarantee you, if you get a lot of these guys, when the camera's not in their face, they're like, bloody hell, where are we going again? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, we have to do this again. Like, so I understand national pride, but how much of it is like is meaningful when you're playing a friendly against Andorra? Yeah. Or I guess if you're asking a guy from Liechtenstein, it might make a big difference. And I saw there was a guy that cried about one of the smaller teams, like going undefeated for 2 games for the first time in its history. So there is, I don't get me wrong, I understand national pride, but it's kind of like, it's unfortunate that the people that play at the highest levels of the game are playing more games as a result of being the best players in the world. So they're playing in FA Cups, they're playing in friendlies, they're playing, they've got commercial deals that they have to, so they're coming over here to the States and playing in 3 or 4 condensed matches, or the Far East or whatever it is. So these guys, they're putting themselves further into the potential for harm's way. It's not necessarily harm's way per se, but there's a more target-rich environment, let's put it that way, for injury or for harm.
So that pride can be satisfied next summer or next winter too.
Yeah. So we'll definitely go on to talk about injuries, but I do think you're that actually is probably an argument that might carry more weight with people who have kind of feelings about their national teams, which are stronger than I think we do. That not only is it dangerous to have people kind of breaking out of their bubbles and being part of, putting much more at risk. There's definitely a challenge in terms of the health and welfare of all of the players, and the quality of the football you're going to get is going to decline as a consequence of trying to get more and more football out of your top players. So let's go on to that. But I did want to pick up on something you said, Ben. It isn't just those three countries. Amongst the worst in the world are some other South American countries in terms of cases per head of population. So South America, I think, is particularly, not that Europe is going great guns, but South America clearly has COVID is alive and well in lots of parts of South America. And one of the things that I've always thought was that the qualifying from South America seems frankly a bit ridiculous, where there's like 13 teams in the same group and they play each other twice. It feels like, especially at a time like now, you could have done a much better job of kind of diminishing the number of games they had to play, and like not have to play any this year, for example. So, okay, yes. So injuries. I'm sure we're not going to catalogue them all here, but we already lost Virgil potentially for the season. Trent had an injury which arguably will keep him out for 4 weeks. We have no idea where Fabinho and Thiago are on their potential returns. And then this week, what looks to me, but they haven't described it this way, like a really serious season-ending, maybe worse than that, injury for Joe Gomez. Third injury with England. What's that thing? Once is an accident, twice is coincidence, and 3 times there's a pattern. Let's not cast any aspersions about Gareth Southgate's training methods, but I am interested to read Simon Brundish's take on it. I've lost the will to live with all of these injuries, and then we've got questions about Robertson. Henderson came off after 45 minutes. Nico Williams was hobbling. Who I missed? I don't know. So, I mean, how do you make sense of this in the first place, so that you don't drive yourself crazy, afraid to look at the sports pages? What do you think, Daz?
I think it just, at the point we're on now, it just becomes like this surreal acceptance of like, well, I guess tomorrow someone's going to fall down a flight of stairs, or they'll get accosted by a flight of stairs walking across the street. I don't know. It feels like they're kind of random at this, not even random, but they just feel like it's almost like a contrivance by the universe against us. I know, woe is us, I know. But it kind of feels like we are afflicted. On the positive tip, though, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this later. I was looking at the potential for who we do for backups, and for the first time in my adult life, I can honestly say that I feel good about, not 100% like this is amazing, but I feel confident that the guys that we have can do more than an average job for us.
Yep. So
as bad as it is, I feel, and I say that I guarantee that flight of stairs is picking up a baseball bat, but I feel good that like the guys that we have left that aren't injured can do a job for us. So my hand signals are terrible for people that actually listen watching. But I had my fingers crossed, everybody. Let's just hope that no one else comes back injured, because I know, it's being a lifelong Liverpool fan, it's just like you just start again, you're just like wringing your hands, like who's coming back injured, because it always happens. Yeah. And it's never just like someone bumped their toenail getting out of the ice bath. It's like it's usually somewhat serious. Yeah. And on the Joe Gomez thing, it's the same thing as you. I saw everything I read about patella tendon. Like people don't seem to come back the same afterwards. And like full credit to Joe Gomez. Every time he's had a serious injury, he's fought the odds and he's come back.
Yeah.
So I hope springs eternal that he will, and that Fabinho somehow is going to be pulled out of cotton wool and look like Lee Majors in the $6 Million Man. Same with Thiago. So again, is me crossing fingers, holding thumbs, whatever you guys want, depending what continent you're on.
There are definitely two ways of looking at this, right? One is to be like, how are we going to patch a team together from all of this? and we can kind of go through the squad about like chances of them being available next Sunday. And it's like Allison, exposed to a COVID case, 50-50. Yeah. Anyway,
Firmino too.
yeah. And Thiago. Well, I already said about who was injured, but now I'm wondering where was Keita? Did he go away? Was he because he already had COVID, right? So that's one path. Then the other path is to look at the team that Klopp inherited, and I think even the set of the B players or whoever is left is probably still a better team than the one he inherited, and he still managed to get something out of that team. So I think if Klopp does what he seems to do, I feel like there's a way we can kind of muddle through at least for a while with this squad. I do expect us to drop points against Leicester actually at this point, because I'm fearing that we'll not have, not just the players we know we're not going to have. There's kind of more to add to the mix by the time they all get back together. But I still think they'll put up a decent showing. You looked at me like I was saying something wrong.
Not having it. I'm going against the whammy of like Leicester breaking up the 63 game streak again for the second time, the bastards.
This is what you planted in my head now that I can't get rid of. It's like, as you also mentioned that in that 64th game, Liverpool without a bunch of players.
Coincidence.
Yeah. Haitham.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you guys. I think, from an injury standpoint, yeah, it sucks. We kind of know why it's happening. There's no control over it with the way the FIFA, officials or whatever, the people that are in charge, UEFA, they're doing their business. But at the same time, I don't know, there's a calmness within me about the whole situation. Paul, you talked a little bit about it, and how the players that Klopp inherited and all of that stuff and how he worked with them. I feel the same way. I think even, if you want to go player by player, if Tsimikas comes in for Robertson, if Robertson could play, I think he's got enough gumption and ability to pick up for him. The same thing, with the center backs, whether it's Phillips or Williams, I think everyone is aware of the system, knows the system. I don't want to say, it's a chess match where you can, interchange players and they'll do the same thing. That's not it. But, I think you have enough ability, even with all the injuries, to kind of procure the system and make sure it's in place. To your question earlier about Keita, he is playing and he actually scored today for Guinea. So that was actually nice to see today. Him scoring, Gini with a brace, Mane with a winning goal today. So it's I see those types of things, types of happenings, and it takes away from the doom and gloom that's surrounding me. So yeah, I'm just calm about it. I think we'll do fine. I think I'll just go ahead and say it. I think we'll beat Leicester when we play them next weekend.
I do hope you're right. Good to hear about Keita. Hopefully his antibodies are very high, so there's no issues.
Antivirals.
Yeah. So did we? Keita had COVID, right? That was confirmed.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything. I heard the rumor a few weeks ago, and then he disappeared. It wasn't like Thiago and Mane, and nowadays Salah. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of talk, so you just don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm very encouraged. You mentioned Gini. Yeah. It's funny when you think about who potentially is available. I don't want to get carried away because we've got a week to go, right? But we could put out a pretty strong team, which could could mean that we don't have to play, Reece Williams or Phillips. It could be Fabinho and Matip.
And I read.
Jordan
Sorry,
Henderson has a muscle injury.
Who?
Has a muscle injury.
Just confirmed by Southgate.
I read somewhere that Fabinho and Thiago. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I read that they are in full training.
Great. So great. Otherwise, that was like a balloon that Daz just provided. Right?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it down. I'm keeping it down. I'm trying to contain your disappointment. So Fabinho, Thiago, both training well.
So I need to mute for a second. I'm gonna tell my kids to get out the house.
So one thing is, James Milner didn't go anywhere, right? Presumably he's hanging out at, I don't know, is he hanging out at Melwood? Have they closed that now? Is he hanging out at Kirby? Wherever he is. So Milner,
they could make a battleship out of him and it wouldn't sink.
Yeah. There was a meme I saw about Klopp and like I think it was had a water container with a big hole in it, and they put a Band-Aid over it, and it's Milner. Yeah. So Milner will be available. And we'll look ahead in a few moments. So I'll go there. We'll finish off this kind of round of things. Injuries. I fear if we record for too long, we'll find out another one. So let's.
Liverpool burns to the ground.
Yeah. So Ben.
As I was listening to people talk, there's a couple reactions I have, and one is that there were plenty of what is the term for a fan equivalent of a frenemy? We need to come up with a term for that. But the people that constantly dogged Joe Gomez and thought he was crap, and we needed to buy a center back, and now that he's hurt, it's the end of the world, right? It can't be both.
Idiots, I think.
So that's one reaction I have. And another reaction I have is that there's plenty of athletes that got their start because somebody else got injured. The one that comes to mind is I don't think we would ever heard of Tom Brady if Drew Bledsoe had not gotten injured, right?
Yeah.
And so we never know what's gonna come of these players. I mean, all we can judge them off of is what they've done so far. And I personally have no complaints about what Nat Phillips or Reece Williams has done so far.
Yeah.
I know that we're thinner, but we still have bodies. We have Billy Kumitio, if I'm saying his name right. Stettenberg. I mean, it's not like we have to put Sadio Mane at center back, right? And also, we're not playing Bayern Munich every week.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay. I know the real fear is that, and this is going to be irrational when I say it, and I hope it gives people hope, is that there's something going on with our center backs that every single one of them is going to get hurt, right? But that can't happen, can it? I mean, we can't have all of them go, right? And I also think, I know you think I'm jinxing this, Daz, but the other issue is that I still hold the belief that it's going to hit all the other teams too. And I just looked over the injury list, and it is hitting them. It is hitting those teams, but we just don't know it, right? Mm-hmm. West Ham, it looks like, has one or two players out with coronavirus. Everton does. I mean, it's just there's a lot of things going on that we don't know about because, frankly, we don't care. I think let's muddle through this month, see where it gets us, and then Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp can have a talk about whether or not they need to go into the market or not.
Yeah. Very reassuring. I do hope you're right. I mean, I do think there are injuries affecting other teams, which leads me to hope that they'll go back and revisit the 5-sub rule, because that just seems stupid that the Premier League clubs have not supported that, given that every other team or country in Europe has, including Scotland. 5-sub rule.
I heard earlier when I was watching the England Belgium match that Sterling was injured yesterday in training.
Who was injured?
Sterling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he wasn't even on the bench today. Precautionary, but he was injured yesterday.
I don't mean it the way it probably comes across, but it kind of needs somebody from a lower down in the league to get injured, for them to recognize that this is affecting them too.
They're not playing anywhere. That's the thing. I mean, there's nobody from Leicester, I think, played this international league other than Prayet, I think, played for Belgium. And
Tielemans did too.
Tielemans, yeah. But the English players for Leicester, Vardy is not on the team. Harvey Barnes wasn't there, so.
Of course, Schmeichel didn't travel because of the Danish mink issue. Yeah. But I don't think Leicester. I think it was more like the Burnleys and the West Hams of this world that were really opposed to the 5-sub rule.
Well, I mean, I kind of as a tangent here, but I think it might be worth getting your guys' input in this as well. Is, do you think that our overall reaction to the quote-unquote this injury crisis, because what once wasn't a crisis seems to be rapidly becoming one, do you think that we would be more at odds with it if we hadn't won the league last year? Because winning the league was like, and forgive me for using this, but it was like a giant bong rip. It just calmed everything all the way down, like all the anxiety and the stress. Like it seemed to just it was like it exercised out of me, like in the demonic sense, not the sweat sense. I guess it could be both, but I just felt like there was just a huge weight was lifted off of me as a fan. So like, I'm like, man, we won it last year. We still could be in the running for it this year. It's not going to be the 300-point difference that we had last year. But I think that if most bookies would probably still have us as favorites to win the league again. So I'm like, it just feels like it doesn't feel as angst-ridden hearing all this bad news. It still sucks, but it's not woe is me. I'm not self-flagellating, kneeling on glass, that kind of thing.
Good.
Well, not anymore.
The bookies have a second, by the way. Just to let you know.
What?
After City.
We
were first last week, and then Salah. It changes with whatever is going on. So the week before we were first, and this weekend we were second. So I don't understand it.
I just don't think. I mean, it is a big deal, but we are allowing ourselves to engage in wild, nightmarish fantasies. I mean, we haven't even seen Matip and Reece Williams play together, or Matip and Nat Phillips. I mean, I'm no expert, I'm no scout, but I think that Nat Phillips will be a great, a very suitable substitute, suitable and not on the bench. I mean, he will make do playing against the bottom half of the league. I mean, it looks like that's the sort of thing that he could do. After he was playing, people said, this is a Premier League player. Probably not top half of the table, but bottom half of the table. So I think he'll do well against those. And Reece Williams, I don't know if he's put a foot wrong. I mean, I don't want to jinx him again, Daz. I don't have that power, by the way, but
you just developed it. I guarantee you. Flight of stairs is just on its way to Reece Williams.
Reece Williams injured in freak training ground accident.
Flight of stairs suspected.
Byline: Ben Bergman suspected at fault.
That's great.
Yeah, let's do another one of these in 2 weeks. I mean, Jesus, we've got how many matches coming up, and those guys would have played too. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Sepp Vandenberg or Kumetio play either. I mean, there's just so many matches. For me, I think can I say shit on this? The shits of it is that I just did, I guess. So is that these guys would have all played anyway, right? Because of so many matches and so much time. I think the struggle is now they're going to have to carry a heavier load than they would have had to.
Yeah. And I do think even now the 5 subs would really help, because then you could, get 60 minutes out of Xherdan Shaqiri, in a bunch of games. You wouldn't have to kind of choose which of the front three you took off when the game was already won. So I think there are definitely some. So we could definitely paint a terrible scenario. Going back to your point, Daz, about do we feel calmer as a result of having won it? Oh, I'm thinking if this was a year ago, and we had we almost won it with 97 points, and we felt like we would we could go again, and all this stuff started happening. Oof, yeah. I think I would have probably needed even more counselling than I get now. So
you'd be recording this with flames in the background,
something like that. Yeah. yeah, yeah. And somehow I'd have blamed Martin Atkinson for it all. But anyway,
That's only fair.
For me, there's just really quickly. I don't think it's because we won. Last year, the last PL title. The fact that I'm calmer. I think it's just the past 5 years is what's making me calm at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The clopsicle.
Yes.
Clopsicle.
So we should also do some diaphragmatic breathing at this point, just to
the clubble,
right.
the club bubble.
So okay, we're going to go to one last round. So we usually do kind of one thing you saw this week. We're going to shape it maybe one thing you took away from the international break. Well, I guess it wasn't a break, but the internationals anyway. So a break from real football. And I know you had yours ready. So Daz, what's the one thing you want to share with us?
Sergio Ramos's penalty for Spain against Switzerland. I'm going to put this out here real quick because I'm not sure what is the rule about stutter stepping now, because he almost landed on his foot, paused, then went forward and tried to put it in the bottom left corner. Not only was it soft enough for the goalkeeper to get to, he held onto it, which is, for someone that takes a penalty, if a goalkeeper can hold onto the ball, like, you should quit. Like, you should never take another penalty as long as you live.
Yep.
And just because he's such a nice person, it just made it all so much better.
Did I tell you? I don't know if I told you this at the after the 2018 final. You can go onto soccer.com and make up your own shirts. So I went on and got this image of number 4 from Real Madrid's new shirt with Thug on the back. And my son was insisting that I buy it, but I'm not buying a Real Madrid shirt. I did use the image on several different
toilet paper.
Yes. You got it. Yeah. So did they lose Spain in that game?
I think it was 1-1. I think they tied it up. Yeah.
And he missed 2 penalties, by the way. It wasn't just one.
I just saw the one.
No, he missed 2, and it was the same trajectory. The first one was the same trajectory, except the goalie kind of pushed it to the corner. But yeah, he missed 2 penalties yesterday.
Maybe I must have missed one because I was laughing so hard at the first one.
I read an article that that they had figured out his tell because he had usually done the panenkas, right?
Yep.
And I read an article that they must have been playing, and I don't watch Spain that closely, but it must have been Celta Vigo, and Hugo Mayo was telling the keeper, if he does X, don't move. But it was like, it's that mental thing that the keeper can't stand still, right? And after, he did it, but the keeper moved, and then he did the panenka, and Mayo was just screaming at him like, I told you. But I wonder if maybe now they've unrung the bell and they figured out the trick.
That's exactly what the goalie did yesterday. Ramos on both penalties did the whatever it's called, the skip hop or whatever, and the goalie just stood still until he hit the ball and just went straight to it both times. So I think they figured that, these goalies are professionals and they train on their own or whatever, and they study, penalty takers because each team has their designated penalty taker. So, yeah, I think people are figuring out. Even we see it with Jorginho. He's missed a few. He scored today out of a penalty, but I think people are figuring out the whole craziness.
Yeah, you can't generate
on the Panenka. Just real quick on the Panenka. This is a good couple of years ago now, but I want to say it was a team that was vying for promotion, and there was a penalty, and the guy tried to Panenka, and the goalkeeper just stood there and caught it, and one of the home team fans came up with a song. And I think it was Bonnie Tyler's. It was Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah.
And he changed the song lyrics to Totally Shit from the Start. And,
oh, that's great.
I'll see if I can find it and send it to you guys. That was no good because he had like an entire song. Then they changed the lyrics. The refrain was "You're totally shit from the start."
very easily be a new Everton song. Everton.
I didn't mean to derail that, but that's the segment of panenka. Like,
We're wrapping up here, right? Haitham, what? I don't know if you can beat that. No, that's like that was a twofer, right? That wasn't just about Sergio Ramos. That was.
So two things, really quickly. Number one, it was kind of nice to see Genie paying tribute to VVD Van Dijk after he scored the goal. Doing Van Dijk's celebration.
Yeah.
So that was, and then you've seen so many displays of just honoring Van Dijk by all the Dutch players, when they scored. So that was good to see. The other point is just the fact, at least for me, how boring watching international matches is. For some reason, when I watch like PL, sometimes Bundesliga, I'm actually glued to the TV. And I was trying to figure out why is that? Why is it that way? And maybe because the fans are not there, but the fans are not in the domestic leagues either. So I'm not sure. I'm not enjoying any international games.
So I think there is something written by some of the stats people about international football where it's just not as intense. You can't play a pressing game because you've got all these people who don't know who each other is, and you have to work really hard on getting the right signals. So I think a lot of it's about levels. And I joke with my son who kind of says Pogba could be great if he played for blah blah blah, and it's like because he's great for France. It's like, yeah, I think that's something about the way the game's played in international levels as much as it is about Pogba's ability, personal perspective. So, Ben,
you went full Souness there.
That's what
You went full Souness there.
So I do. We have because Pogba's higher rated than Henderson on FIFA. That's a topic of conversation between my son and I. It's like, how can that be? Like Henderson's won this individual award, and Pogba's not won any of these things. So anyway, we talk about that thing that FIFA doesn't measure. So Ben.
Are all those injuries, by the way, those notifications? I hope they're not.
No, that's some annoying group that just fired up a message about something, and I thought I'd cancelled it. But anyway, yes, sorry, we're detouring.
So with a 3-month-old infant and the new Assassin's Creed game out, I didn't watch any international soccer or football. So I'll give you two other hot takes. One, I think I've told you guys in our little chat group, but we had a raffle at our watch with our OLSC and raised $550 for Genesis Youth Foundation, I think.
That's great.
Raised between $500 and $600. It's a group started by West Africans to keep refugee kids involved after school for playing soccer and teaching life lessons. The leader of the group did admit that they're not great at soccer yet, but that's kind of beyond the point. And then the other, this is just gossip, but our new leader, Brian, filled out a survey following the philanthropy drive that LFC did this summer. Yep. And we won a raffle for a signed ball by the whole team. So it sounds like we're going to raffle it off and make some more money for somebody here by the end of the year. So that's all. That's what I'll talk about instead of the thing you told me to talk about.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Actually, what I'm excited about is that they constantly have these prizes and never kind of see who wins. It's good to know that you won. Well done. Well done. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I had a few different things. The only game I watched actually was probably the last half of Scotland against Serbia because it felt like that was a match that actually had some weight. And it turns out that they were playing in the stadium where the panenka guy actually played and where the term panenka was coined. That's the extent of my knowledge about panenka. They mentioned him in the commentary. I thought they were going to blow it if you saw the game. It was in basically they had like 3 minutes to go, and Serbia equalized, and Scotland were really hanging on. And we were watching it, and my son said, Mitrovic is going to miss. This was like, it was 3-3 in the penalties. I'm like, how'd you know? The guy just is. And apparently Mitrovic has got a really terrible penalty record, which I didn't realize because I'm not watching FIFA. And sure enough, the 10th penalty of the sequence, Mitrovic's shot is saved by the Scottish goalkeeper, which it was like, I think the only moment I think in this whole period of internationals which felt like it was meaningful in some way. So see how I weaved in Panenka and the international break.
So there's a story. Sorry, before you get
ahead,
to your next point about the panenka.
Mm-hmm.
So Mitrovic supposedly was injured, and that's the reason why he did not take the penalty when Fulham was awarded the penalty the weekend before the internationals. And what's his name? The guy, forgot his name, played for Everton. Took the penalty, did the penalty, missed it.
Oh.
Just trying to weave it all together.
Okay.
So,
and what was that song?
Song
about people missing Panenkas?
Totally shit from the start. Totally shit from the start.
Totally shit from the start.
So clearly that's going to be our title for our episode. Thank you so much. There was one small thing, actually, before all this nonsense hit. There was a piece in The Athletic where several people had written about kind of Klopp and being a player under Klopp. And I don't know if it was Robertson or Wijnaldum talked about the fact that when he came back at the beginning of the 2019 season, he specifically talked about our priorities are to win the Premier League and, quote, number 7. And I thought it was fascinating that's the way in which he is thinking about winning the Champions League again. Not like our second or another trophy, number 7. From the great man. Going to end it there. This has been, well, from my perspective, this has been hugely entertaining. Really appreciate it. I started before we began a bit sort of feeling like, talking about injuries. I feel uplifted. And of course, we're going to be at Leicester now, right? So thanks, Ben. Thanks, Haitham. Thanks, Daz. Great to see you all. Take care.